everyone. You are listening to Over the Fence, a conversation with neighbors. This is a production of Neighborhood Falmouth. Today, our conversationalists will include Jackie Pratt, Marian Bahari, Tom Sabara, Grant Willis, Mary Pat McKenzie, and me. I'm Susan Laux, Director of Neighborhood Falmouth. Our first topic today, or our topic today, is the scariest moment of my life. So, who wants to, or maybe it doesn't have to be the scariest moment of your life, but a scary moment of your life. And that way you can judge what's appropriate, what you feel like sharing. Who wants to start? Grant.
Yeah, when I was in the Air Force in the 60s and we flew Boeing 707s, we were in like 1963 and 1964, we were supporting the Katanga airlift for the UN in the Congo. There's a lot of problems there. So my job as navigator of this Boeing 707 C-135 was to get us off the ground uh, in the right direction, check in at the Lodges Beacon in the Azores, and from there turn to a certain direction that would get us around all there were communist countries on the west coast of Africa at that time, and they didn't really care for the UN a lot, and we were, helping the UN, so uh, we just decided to go around them. Well, I didn't. I missed the Azores beacon. We flew along, and I got this great Lodges Beacon number, dialed it in. It was over to the right a bit. I said, okay. So I told the pilot, take us to like 20 degrees right. I think we're a little off course. Uh, and he did. And the beacon kept going off to the right. And I said, something's wrong here, but hey, take us another 25 degrees right. And the beacon got, more and more powerful on my little gauge there. And all of a sudden it flipped. And I knew we were in mid-ocean. I looked down and there's this Russian trawler just covered with, it looked like fishing poles. They were antennas. And they were there to mislead people who were heading for this particular island group. And I had missed it. And I turned my radar down and I saw the bulge of Africa. We were about to enter the airspace of Upper Volta, which was not a nice country. Um, and I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And all of a sudden I saw to the right of the aircraft, this MiG 17, nice shiny silver MiG with a green and red and whatever flag on it, kind of pulled up and kind of waggled its wings at me. I went, and I told the pilot, could you take us about 180 degrees to the left, please? The guy said, what are you talking about? He's reading his Playboy. He's not even looking up. Uh, and I said, we got company. And he looked down and he said, oh my God. And he looked out the left-hand side and there's another one. And they're both just, keeping pace with this, looking at us. I'm looking down at Africa. And we very gradually started to turn out of there and they followed us and then they peeled away when we got out of the Air Force. I thought we were going to get shot down. I absolutely thought that was my last moment on Earth, and it was my damn fault because I followed the beacon to a Russian trawler instead of the island beacon. So there,
Yeah.
that was my scariest moment, but I lived, so happy ending.
Oh my gosh. Does your heart still race telling that story?
Yeah, when I get the picture of the MiG, it was so big. I mean, it was probably way off, but to me, it just looked enormous. It was just a fighter plane. But I thought
Hmm.
to myself, either one of these guys could finish us off pretty quickly.
That
And
is super scary.
so that's,
Wow.
but it was a long time ago. So, I'm over it now.
Oh my gosh, I'm not sure anyone's going to equal that. I don't
Oh,
think I want
no.
to equal that. Oh
Well,
my,
I'm the one who keeps pushing for the scariest moment, so I guess I was setting myself up.
yeah, no, that's incredible. Who's going next?
So Grant, was the second scariest moment in the bar when you finally landed and the pilot accosted you about what?
He broke the Heineken bottle over my head. Yeah, I remember that. Hey, Heineken's were only 25 cents back then at the officers club.
Oh my
I
goodness.
mean, that's pure physical fear, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, I'm gonna die real soon, because they were, waggling their wings like they were signaling each other to come on in.
Wow.
But
So
they
were
just
they
didn't-
Russian?
They were Russian
I-
planes, but they were flown by whatever the Upper Volta Air Force consisted of. That might have been the entire Air Force, for all I know. But yeah, they were supplied by Russia.
Where is Upper Volta?
If you know the bulge of Africa,
Yeah.
it's down, and it is now, I think it's called, no, I don't want to guess what the name is now, but it's where Ivory Coast, all those little kind of small countries are in. It's right under the bulge, about right here. So it's the first thing you hit if you're coming across the Atlantic,
Right.
uh, which I was. And
So it's the west coast of Africa, not the,
right, it's the West Coast. We were coming from McGuire Air Force Base, New Jersey, direct flight to Lodges, and then Lodges to Albertville. We were going to Albertville in the Congo. Finally made it.
Oh my goodness.
Can't cut, oh my.
Well, we had a load full of Belgian troops with us in these blue uniforms in the back. We were supposed to land them for peacekeeping duties at Albertville, and then some at Stanleyville. And I don't think they knew what was going on. But when we finally dropped the Belgians in the middle of the Congo where they belonged, and somebody said, how come the Belgians are down here? This is the Belgian Congo, and they're probably not going to be liked a lot. They said, well, we had the Irish troops in here before. And they wouldn't leave the women alone, so we had to take them out. And we're replacing them with Belgians. I said, okay, that's all I wanted to know. Back to United States.
Oh my.
how long a flight is it from Jersey?
About 8 to 10 hours.
Wow.
8 hours. I should have hit that beacon. I hit the wrong one. Apparently, it was overpowering the regular Azores radio beacon.
So they were trying to deceive
Who?
the Russian.
The Russians.
Oh, yeah.
all the-
Yeah, the trawler is called Ampermeter. I found out later. And it was famous among navigators for putting you on the wrong course. And it would just sail around. I mean, we lowered ourselves down a bit and it just did this big U-turn. I mean, all these antennas going like that. And it just, took off in the opposite direction. So we left them alone. Not that much we could do with them, but we had to get the Belgians in there. So I finally found my way to the Congo.
Oh,
Trial and error always works.
Had a beer and flew home?
I had several beers, as a matter of fact. But
I'm
the
gonna
pilot
have one
wasn't-
myself.
The pilot wasn't buying them for me, I'll tell you that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I
Wow.
think we should hear other scary moments from people's lives.
I've been in a couple of blizzards that are pretty god awful. And one of the last ones, it was a driving thing, nothing nearly as scary as Grant. But it was March and it was either 3 or 4 years ago. My uncle died in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. And the funeral was in Bedeck. So my son John and I flew up to Halifax and then rented a car to drive to Cape Breton, which is not, it's not a bad drive. It's 4.5 hours in good weather. But when we got partway down through Nova Scotia, a blizzard hit. And I mean, a really bad one, like you couldn't see anything. So that's fine when you're sort of on the Trans-Canada where there's lights, but it's not, we couldn't see anything. We couldn't see cars in front of us. We couldn't see cars behind us. We didn't, we're the only ones on the road. So you get to a point, Cape Breton is an island, and you have to get across the water. And it's a causeway, fairly small. And we got to Antigonish and just a little bit closer, which is fairly close to the causeway. And we were, maybe going 2 or 3 miles an hour. I mean, not even 5. It was really scary. He was driving because my attitude was, you've driven on these roads more recently than I have. So I just kept my mouth shut. But we got to the causeway, and for the first time in my life, and that I've been traveling on that causeway since I was 2 years old, they had shut it down, and we had to wait for the RCMP to have a car in front of us and a car behind us to guide us across so that we didn't end up in the water. And we would have ended up in the water had they not been, and we were to keep, I've never had to do this before, with their car, like our car and the car in front and the car behind us, so that you're like not losing visibility. You're really almost riding on top of them. God bless John. I have no idea how he did it because I'm not sure I could have. In which case, I suppose they would have put somebody in to drive instead of me. But anyway, we finally got across. And then the rest of the drive to Bedeck is along the Bredor Lakes. But in some places, the edge of the road is about, like, if you were driving down Main Street in Falmouth, it would be where the library lawn is. I mean, it's that close is where the water is. And there was no visibility at all, none. I have no idea how we got there, not a clue. And that drive from when you get on the causeway to the village of Bedeck would on a good day be 45 minutes, maybe an hour with traffic. Like there's not really a lot of traffic, but if there was, so it took us 3 hours because we were just at crawl speed. And all I could think of is if we go off the road, nobody will find us for days and days and days because the snow was so heavy. And if you went into the lake, you were done. And they're big lakes. They're really large. But we made it, as did, it turned out, 4 of my cousins were on the road a few miles behind us. And as we staggered in, finally, to the house in Bedeck, needless to say, there were drinks raised. That was like, and not really entirely part of the wake. It was simply like, we made it. But
you stop, like pull over.
because if a car came behind you and didn't see you, you'd be killed.
No, but I mean, there was no place to like pull up.
No,
or
no,
a parking
no.
lot or
No.
some
Nothing.
church or something that you could.
No.
wait
There's
it-
one church on the Indian reservation, but it was closed up and locked. I mean, I think they were only there on Sunday morning. Nothing. So it was just it was a case of you can't stop, and the snow would have covered the car was the other thing. It was a heavy blizzard and it wasn't forecast. And it's really hard to believe that this was only a few years ago. It was not long ago. And I mean, we were living in this house and we've been in this house for 5 years. So it was weird that we didn't have any warning of that's what was going to happen, and picked up a rental car at the airport in Halifax. And they didn't say anything like, maybe you should wait till tomorrow. It was,
That's scary.
yeah.
Scary.
I've never had that kind of RCMP accompaniment for anything where they're just, And they were great because they hovered just in front and right behind and got us across. But it's, so now I just stay home when it's snowing.
Yeah, and drink. How about
Hopefully it's not necessary in the house.
Jackie or Marianne? One of you guys have a story? Marianne.
I'm listening to Mary Pat, and I think I told this story when we were talking about our favorite cars. And it was a snowstorm, and I had just gotten my little Volkswagen Beetle, and I was driving on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, which is right against the lake. And we were having a massive snowstorm. I did have my seatbelt on, even though it was 1965. And I hit the embankment because I couldn't see it because of the snow. And the little car started spinning around, and I ended up facing north in a southbound lane. And the axle under my car was bent, and I don't know how I did it, but a police officer came and said to me, if I hadn't had my seatbelt on, I wouldn't be here today. And I don't know, I don't really remember how I got to the other side, but I decided not to go where I was planning on going and drove directly to the Volkswagen factory and showroom. And they had the car for 2 weeks to fix it. And since I was such a new driver, by the time I got back to the car, and it was time for me to go home, I was afraid to get in the car and drive.
Mm.
So every time it snows now, now this was a long time ago, every time I see it snowing, I get scared. So that was one. And I think the one that really scared me the most, and I think it's a topic right now in Falmouth, 2 days after I moved here, I was in a 3-car accident on 151. And one of the other cars, the passenger was killed. And the police were here in 2 seconds, but what scared me the most is I didn't realize that airbags had sand in it and
Metal shards.
Yes, and also when they open up, there's a poof of, it looks like dust. And my airbags went off, and the person sitting next to me, I was the driver, she fell forward and hit her head. But I thought we were going to die then. And this was in 2001, and the accidents are still happening on 151, but it was frightening, just frightening. So 2 car accidents. So
My goodness.
exciting.
Yeah,
Scary.
It's a scary topic. This is a scary topic. Tom, you're next.
So this, I wouldn't call this scary, but since we're talking about snowstorms and cars and getting lost. So I was working I was a cardiology fellow at the VA in Boston and in West Roxbury, and we lived in Walpole, which is only about maybe 5 or 6 miles. The blizzard is 78. I'm stuck in the hospital, working in the hospital. And so, we didn't, think that anything was going to, it started snowing in the morning, and, this is by, evening, and I'm ready to go home. And I've got the same Volkswagen that Marion had, except that mine had no floor in the driver's side because it had rotted out, and the brakes were not so good, and it didn't have any reverse. So I had to always park it on some place where I could go out face first. Forward. And so fortunately that was true, but there was a big snow bank in the way now. So I shoveled the snow bank away, and then I was able to get the car going, and realized very quickly that the roads were no better, and the car, as Marion found out, the car is so low to the ground
Yes.
that half the time it's bottoming out in the snow and, you know, acting more like a plow than anything else. So anyway, kind of slow going on the way home, and it's getting deeper and deeper as the further I go south. And so I came up with this, and I got stuck, and I couldn't, of course, I couldn't rock the car because I had no reverse. So I came up with this idea. I opened the doors of the car. The wind was
Like
from,
wings?
yeah, like the wind was from behind me. And I opened the doors, and the wind was so strong, it was probably blowing 35 or 40, that it blew the car down the road. And I was able to get going and turned into, you know, my driveway, got into my driveway, which was basically all downwind. You know, and then of course we sat there for a week before we could get out. But so it wasn't necessarily scary, but it was dumb, I guess.
I love that.
I think the opening the doors was genius.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wasn't so good for the doors.
Did your car have heat in it?
No,
No.
Volkswagens don't have heat.
That was an option.
No.
right. I think that's how I got stuck, because I had to stop to scrape the windshield off because it just got
The
frozen.
defrost didn't work.
No defrost,
Oh, the frost.
no heat.
Oh, my God.
Love the car though.
Oh, that is a great story. That is a great story. Oh, my goodness. Jackie, how about you?
Yeah, as I listened to Mary Pat, I thought about the fact that when I worked for Chevron in New Orleans, I was assigned some problems to straighten out at a field that we had in Mississippi. And I spent a lot of time going across the causeway on, as a matter of fact, I talked about it, about going 120 miles coming home. Yep. About the causeway across Lake Pontchartrain. There were times where I was just a normal driver. And there was one morning I went out and didn't realize, with all of the rain and the fog, that because the car driving up into Mississippi was something I didn't do very frequently before I had this project. And I got to the it's a toll booth. I got to that toll causeway, and I got to the toll booth, and they said, listen, you need to go over to the right behind the cruiser. And I said, okay. And I said, what's up? And they said, well, what he's going to do is lead you across. Same thing that happened with you. And except that this, I discovered that this happened kind of frequently in that particular causeway, because there were a lot of rain in Louisiana and southern Mississippi. So, you really had no visibility. It's very scary.
No.
Yeah. And now these were big old heavy, the Ford Cruisers with all of the lights and whistles.
Mute.
It was easy to follow them. But yeah, I thought about that. The scariest moment, I think, that moments that I think that I had is when my second husband and I married. I had encouraged to take a windjammer cruise on a 4-masted sailing boat in the Bahamian Out Islands. I thought this would be fun. And he said, well, this is good because you and I could skin dive. And I'd never skin dive. I'd never done any skin diving before that. I'd done some sailing with some friends, but no underwater stuff. So he said, yeah, we can go diving. There's diving off this boat, which was fine. The diving actually wasn't very frightening. It was pretty safe and a lot of fun. But this was an old 4-masted sailing ship that had been owned by the Duke of Windsor, and the captain would run around he had shorts and no shirt and a shark tooth necklace and yeah, a wonderful tan.
Like uniform for beach wear.
Yeah, but I didn't have a lot of confidence when he got seasick, but we hit a tropical storm and then he got seasick. But I don't get seasick apparently, because I was my poor my poor ex-husband was so sick and so mad. It was really a sort of a bad start to that marriage. It was a foreboding of a lot of things, I think. But it just, we lost, you know, we cracked a mast. We lost our freshwater pipe first. We had it. They didn't have radar or sonar or Lorans. They had a radio phone that intermittently worked.
Oh my goodness.
It was like, and the thing is, we lost our port engine. And the thing is, we couldn't, it was awful. And at one point when the storm was raging, the mate and I were the only two people who weren't seasick. So we're stacking up sandbags around the hatch down into the lower deck because the waves were coming over the ship. It was very scary, and because I didn't feel like I was in safe hands. I mean, when the person who you should be putting your trust in is leaning over to the side of the boat throwing up, you just can't trust them.
Was this your honeymoon?
Yes.
Oh,
Sounds great.
As I said, it was foreboding of a lot of things. We probably should have gone back to New Orleans and annulled the marriage. But the only good blessing about this whole thing was that we had bought all this Mount Gay rum because
Alcohol seems to figure into all these stories.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, keep in mind we had no fresh water. And I very, very quickly figured out that I could brush my teeth with Mount Gay. But I remember.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
But I remember walking around with soda crackers that I was going to bring to my husband and the bottle of Mount Gay rum. I remember that this love I did trust the mate. He was an old British seaman who'd retired, and this is what he was doing. And he seemed to know what he was about. He did talk to me for about celestial navigation. The thing is, with all of the Mount Gay rum, I don't remember any of the conversation. I probably didn't remember it 15 minutes afterwards, but it was. I remember at the time it was kind of entertaining. But the last thing I remember about that trip was that when we came into harbor, they managed to get the tape deck working, and they were playing Amazing Grace, and I thought of all the appropriate times.
Oh, I love it. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Oh wow. Well, this has made me, these scary experiences. I've had a few flash through my mind, but I guess one that you made me think of, Jackie, because being on the water was, I remember when I was a kid, there was a neighbor that had a swimming pool. These were family friends, and they were just down the street. And so a lot of times we would end up there. I don't even remember whether this was summertime. It probably was. And we were playing a game where somebody would go off the diving board and somebody else would be the rescue person, or would, and would come and take you, not like really, like being water rescue person, but just kind of, swim with you over to the side. And so I guess I was in the water, and a girl went off the diving board, and she got into my arms and she sunk me. And so I started going up, but then she just kept sinking me, and I kept just not being able to get to the surface, and I kept trying to sort of move her off, and I just and she wasn't picking up on it, and I wasn't really picking up on it either. I just knew that I needed to breathe pretty soon. And eventually, she was one of the kids who lived at that house, and her mom was there. And before you knew it, I felt this, all of a sudden I was free, and the mother had reached into the pool. We must have been close enough to the side, and pulled her daughter off of me. And I came up and I could breathe, and she, and then I felt terrible because the girl got yelled at, and that was not the point. It was just, we just were having a little organizational problems with this maneuver. But anyways, so I think we should wrap it up. This has been very provocative. I think I won't sleep well tonight at all. I'm not sure which of your scariest moments I will be dreaming of, but maybe more than one. Anyways, thank you all for participating. This has been Over the Back Fence, a conversation with neighbors, and this is a production of Neighborhood Falmouth, and we hope you'll join us next time. Bye.